What if I told you the guitar restoration you're about to see started its journey in a dumpster? Not just any dumpster, a Sam Ash dumpster from when they closed their stores permanently. This isn't your grandpa's guitar repair. We're taking a completely mutilated Epiphone Les Paul and rebuilding it stronger, lighter, and more resonant than ever using advanced carbon fiber technology. Prepare to witness a resurrection. Can a broken legend be reborn with space-aged materials? My customer found a Epiphone Les Paul discarded and seemingly beyond repair. But we're about to challenge everything you know about lutherie. Forget about carpenter's glue and wood clamps. We're infusing this iconic instrument with futuristic strength of carbon fiber, pushing the boundaries of what's possible in guitar restoration. Get ready for a paradigm shift. The guitar techs that attempted this original repair, I don't know what they were thinking. But they took a belt sander and started making scoops into the wood and then inlaying pieces of maple to strengthen it. But first of all, they didn't really align the two parts very well. And my guess is this is the second time it's broken, because it appears the first time that it broke, on the flip side of the headstock, they painted it and the paint didn't adhere to the underlying layer that was there originally. They didn't prep the original poly finish for the lacquer finish that they sprayed over top. And you'll see here as I scrape it away. I found that using a chisel was the best way. Here's some still photos of the process. Before I started filming the video part of this, I took a couple still shots of what it looked like. You can see that kind of white webbing. That's because the lacquer checked. It started cracking because it was two non-compatible surfaces. If they would have prepped their work a little better, it would have been fine. But anyways, I have to chip it away and redo it. I'm testing the area here with a little bit of acetone to see if the original finish is lacquer rather than polyurethane or polyester, but it definitely appears to be polyester. The acetone does nothing to soften or destroy the poly. Now this lacquer, this chippy lacquer, is a whole nother story. The sharp little shattered particles were starting to bother my skin, so I put on these rubber gloves, or nitrile gloves. Sometimes I'll heat up the surfaces to see if it scrapes away a little easier, but it turns out that the rubbery texture was actually making it more difficult. So I'll try to let that cool off and go back to my cool chiseling. Like I began to tell you the story about my customer who brought this to me. He got it from another fellow who dug it out of that dumpster, and he said it couldn't be done. They said it was trash. Well, I'm telling you guys, this broken Les Paul literally shattered and abandoned. It could be something even better than it was originally. this video isn't just about fixing a guitar. It's about pioneering a new era of instrument craftsmanship. We're about to redefine beyond repair using the incredible properties of carbon fiber, first introduced by Joe Glazer of Nashville, Tennessee. He's been doing guitar repairs here for 30 years, and he developed this carbon fiber wrap where we take carbon fiber cloth impregnated with thin 2-part marine grade epoxy and wrap it around the neck side of the repair. And I'm going to be documenting this as good as I can for all of you guys. First thing I'll do is try to just cosmetically touch up the headstock face that had a loose veneer on the front of it. And I'll do that by mixing together some of this StewMac black epoxy. So this is a slow setting epoxy that's mixed in a 1-to-1 ratio. You just take equal parts, mix it for a minute, and then apply it to the project. Once applied, I like to put a layer of wax paper between my clamping cauls and the project. I decided that clamping caul was a little too thin. I want to grab a, that's about 3 millimeters in thickness. I want to grab a 6 millimeter thick Lexan caul and restart this clamping. I'll use a couple small bar clamps. These are just 6-inch clamps. Here's my thicker piece. You can see as the epoxy squeezes out between the caul, it's trapped in between that thin layer of wax paper, which makes cleanup much easier. Okay, so this is the way I'll leave it overnight. Come back in the morning and we'll start cleaning it up. That's what it looks like when it's fully cured. I'll take a Japanese marking knife and clean up the truss rod access area. There's a little bit of black squeezed out there. We want to do this before we apply our new finish and such. It doesn't have to be 100% tidy in that area. It's covered by a piece of plastic eventually. But we will want to start doing a little level sanding. You can see there's a little discoloration there between the layers of polyester and the layer of epoxy. We'll probably want to spray or brush on a new layer of black color. But first, let's get started on the back side of the neck. We're going to chisel away the finish and the wood down 40 thousandths of an inch. I set my little depth drill bit to 40 thousandths and drilled about 30 to 40 little holes. That way when I get down to the bottom of each hole, I know that I'm at the depth that I need for the epoxy and the carbon fiber cloth. And this is a plain weave carbon fiber cloth, and my epoxy is the West Systems 105 resin with a 206 slow hardener. Sometimes it's easiest to scrape away the polyester before using the chisels and rasps on the mahogany wood. And this mahogany wood, I must tell you, is the weakest specimen or species of mahogany that you could ever use on a guitar build. If you're building guitars, please steer clear of Indo-Pacific fast-growing mahoganies like Luan and Meranti, otherwise known as Philippine mahogany, Indonesian. You'll see it in the big building shops, 1/8-inch plywood, Meranti, Luan. It's been around for 40 years. It's good for plywood and backs of cabinets and things, but it the lumber is just not strong enough for a guitar neck. So here's my first layer of the thin epoxy resin. You'll see how I left a little ledge down there on the bottom side of the job. That's where I want the repair material to kind of end right there. I want it to be flush with that little ledge when we're finished. So I'll lay down a total of 3 layers of this plain weave carbon fiber fabric, and with a little bit of the thin marine grade epoxy in between each layer. That's a total of 3. I'll wrap it up with wax paper. Smooth it out a little bit. Now this is going to squeeze out around the edges, and that's another reason for using wax paper. Keep it contained. We don't want the squeeze out getting in contact with our clamps and our elastic exercise tubing. And when I wrap the tubing, when I use the tubing to wrap the project, I don't want to use too much force. I just want to give a little bit of stretch to it as I go. A teeny tiny bit of stretch, not much. 20 or 30 wraps are going to have enough pressure to hold everything in place. Because if you wrap it too hard, it'll start squeezing out in between the tubing. As the tubing is kind of like you see, there's 20 pieces of tubing now all side by side. You'll get a little squeeze in between each one. It'd be like these little ribs going all the way up the project, which isn't good. But when we let this rest for at least 8 hours. The full cure time is really more like 11 hours, but I'll go ahead and release the tubing. See, a little bit of it got stuck, so I might have to cut that with scissors right there. And that's what it looks like. I had a little bit of paper towel down around the truss ride opening so the epoxy wouldn't squeeze down into there and make it non-functional. Boy, that would have been a mess, huh? So here we are. We'll start our cleanup. We'll go around with the files and sandpaper, but we'll want to use a respirator because carbon fiber inhaled is probably the worst idea anybody's ever had. Permanent lung damage. It's like, fiberglass in the esophagus. Not good. All right. We'll use our little cheese grater here to reshape this thing. And this thing is going to be good as new, strength-wise. I think this is about my 7th carbon fiber wrap job. Over at Glazer's shop, they do probably 4 or 5 a week. That rasp right there is the fine wood rasp from Stumac. If you're not familiar with Stumac, check out Stuart McDonald, Athens, Ohio. They sell guitar building and guitar repair tools and materials, finishing materials. They don't sell this carbon fiber fabric or the epoxy. thin epoxy West systems that I used there, but they do sell the black epoxy and the colors that I'll be using. That's just a thin layer of shellac. I want to see how we're doing as far as the smoothness goes. I like to go over top of the original wrap with a little bit of the West Systems thickened epoxy. I think I used the 655 thickened. And now that everything's nice and smooth, I'll put on that new layer of black paint that I was talking about earlier. There's a little bit of the L, the gold L from the cursive bottom part of the L that got sanded off. For the black, I'll use the Blend All powder. That you can get, the Mohawk is available now at StuMac. And for the L, I'll use a little bit of the gold. Blend All gold with a little bit of 2-pound cut shellac. I mixed up enough for 50 Les Paul headstocks, but I only need like one tiny little paintbrush worth to fix that L. And just like that, the L has been restored. Good. Now this is the fret and bevel file. It's the finest tooth file I have. I did a little drop fill with fill and finish from Glue Boost. I had a couple little craters to fill in, so I did that. Shot a little accelerator on there for a cure, and then smoothed it out with my fine file. I want to make sure it's 100% completely smooth and sanded smooth before I spray on my new color. It's going to be a rich burgundy brown, kind of a wine color. Kind of a Bordeaux. It's got a little bit of blue in there to give it a almost blueberry, purple, grape color. That's my homemade accelerator right there. It's just a little bit of baking soda with a little bit of water. If you're not worried about your CA glue blushing, you can also use that StuMac or Color Tone stuff. To get a head start on the coloring, I'll use a little bit of burnt umber Mohawk Blend All powder mixed with shellac, just to go over the entire area of carbon fiber fabric. I don't want the fabric pattern telegraphing through the final project. So this brown color will kind of get us in the ballpark of the wood, a wood tone. We can also go in right now and use a small, super dark brown fine marker or pen and draw in wood pores or little grain lines. You see, I may have done that a little bit. I don't know if you can see that, but that's optional. Depending on how translucent or transparent your final color is, you might be able to see through and make it a little more convincing repair if you have those wood pores or wood grain marks. I use an airbrush from StuMac to spray on my wine color. It's a reddish brown with a little bit of blue, like I was saying. I mask off the area where I want to stop. And I get, like, not just in the ballpark. I want to get like to third base color-wise before I peel off that tape, that masking tape. This is shellac, and I've got it mixed in with a little bit of Color Tone liquid dye and a little bit of the Mohawk Blend All powder, which is an opaque pigment. I want a little bit of both in here, a little combination of the two. pigments and tint, or what they call stains. Pigments and stains mixed together give me a semi-opaque, semi-transparent. A little bit of black too to make it darker. So I got the cherry red, I got the powdered red pigment, got the burnt umber, and there's my blue. And that's an India ink, which is perfectly dissolvable in shellac, which is an alcohol-based finish. And I'm able to do this all in my shop without going out into the garage with my huge ventilation system. Because we're not spraying nitro lacquer. It's not the most toxic stuff to spray. This here shellac is pretty environmentally safe. It's been used for thousands of years by furniture makers. And it's still used today by people who care about not poisoning themselves with nitrocellulose lacquer. I put on one layer of clear shellac over the color, let it cure overnight, and then I start coming in with this Glue Boost fill and finish for my final clear coat. And I'll end up having over 10 coats of this Glue Boost fill and finish. I want to build it up with enough film thickness where I can level sand and polish it without going through to the paint layers below. So I set up right next to my ventilation fan. This is just a ceiling fan from Lowe's, which I've installed into the wall. And that goes out and ventilates into the attic beyond this wall here. I've got a little switch on the wall that turns it on and off, and I use it all the time for this. Just wipe on finishes. I can do it all indoors, regardless of the humidity outside or the temperature outside. We know we've got a safe humidity and temperature indoors. Now I'll get started with my sanding and leveling. I'm using the Super Aslix and Super Bufflex sandpapers from Eagle Abrasives, now available at stumac.com. After getting up to about 2,000 or 3,000 grit, I'll use my automotive heavy cut compound to polish it out. I'll remove the masking tape from the fretboard, reinstall the tuners. I'll have to find a string nut and assemble the electronics. We've got a Seymour Duncan bridge pickup and a Fender neck pickup, which are out of phase with each other. So I'll have to reverse the polarities on at the wires at the pots in the switch. And there it is, Bumblebee capacitors. We've got brand new pots, long shaft. There's my soldering workstation. It's very nice. We've got some new knobs, new plastic humbucker rings, humbucker mounting rings there for our pickups. We have the original stop tailpiece and bridge. Other than that, all the electronics are brand new. Got a new nut and a new truss rod cover. We'll put a set of 10 through 46 D'Addario strings on it and clip those flush. Here you can see my new nut and truss rod cover, Epiphone style with 3 screws.